This is the Marriage Podcast, and I'm your host, Alexandra Stockwell. I'm a physician turned relationship and intimacy expert, and I specialize in showing couples how to have incredible, passionate relationships. I myself have been married for 25 years. My husband and I have 4 children and full professional lives, and we've created an amazing relationship. If you want to deepen your understanding of your own relationship and learn to access new heights of emotional, sensual, and erotic intimacy, you're in the right place because I will show you how. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, this is Alexandra, and in this episode of the Marriage Podcast, I'm going to be talking about communication. Yes, I'm going to use a lot of examples about communicating with a beloved, with a spouse, with your romantic partner. But pretty much everything I'm going to say, it applies to relationships in all areas of your life. And actually, I've been thinking a lot about relationships in all areas of your life with parents, with children, with partners, with friends, with neighbors, with coworkers, with bosses, with those you're managing, because I'm co-leading a retreat in August with Antisa Jensen. She is an emotional intelligence expert, a TEDx speaker, and her whole career has been to cultivate her own capacities with communication and then to show others in both personal and corporate settings how to do it. And she's a former client of mine. And so we have a lot of shared context and depth. And I am so excited to be hosting a retreat together. It's called Communication Mastery 1, because there's no context in which we would ever promise total communication mastery. So it's Communication Mastery 1. It's happening August 13th to 15th in Northern California in the most beautiful setting, in a forest by the ocean. It's going to be a really beautiful first in-person retreat post-pandemic. And I'll put the link in the show notes. If you're interested in what I'm talking about today, if you want to improve your communication, actually, I'm going to drop the if. Because whether you feel awkward with important conversations and communications, or you feel good, in either case, you know that so much more is possible. This retreat is actually going to be relatively intimate, completely customized. The people who are already enrolled, every one of them has an amazing life story, has a lot to say, and wants to be able to say it more successfully while building on the skills they already have. So again, come join us. It's going to be an amazing transformational experience. And preparing for the retreat has given context for the content that I'm going to share in this episode. I first encountered research on the different ways that men and women communicate. And let me just say that what I'm going to describe at first sounds very, very heteronormative, but if you keep listening, you'll hear that I actually am not approaching it that way at all. Anyway, the research that I encountered, it must have been in the 90s. A book by Deborah Tannen, who's a linguistics expert. The name of the book is You Just Don't Understand: Men and Women in Conversation. And what she describes is that the main way that men communicate is report talk, meaning they stick to the details, they give a report, they give an update, they give an executive summary, and then the communication is complete. And what Deborah Tannen said in this book is that women do rapport talk, where the emphasis is less on the content and more on building rapport, more on cultivating connection, more on having the communication contribute to the participants feeling closer. So, You Just Don't Understand is the name of the book. Because if a man is focused on report style communication and a woman is focused on rapport style communication, it will be unsatisfying and disorienting and frustrating for both men and women when speaking with one another. Now, the way that this can come up in a relationship is if a woman shares what's happening, something that is impactful, something that has occurred, an illness, a challenge at work, anything that isn't straightforward, or even something which is a success and a big accomplishment, it happens that a man can respond with problem solving, with finding a way to be useful by figuring out what the issue is and making suggestions, when all she actually wants is to be heard, to be seen, to be understood. So that is definitely a phenomenon that happens in heteronormative relationships. And if that's something you're familiar with, if you're the woman, be really clear before you speak what kind of listening you request. You can say, I have something I want to tell you, and I'd love for you just to listen. When I'm done, all I want is a hug. Or when I'm done, all I want is for you to say, I'm glad you told me that. And it may be that you actually also want some help with navigating the situation and that your partner is listening and has some great ideas, but go ahead and make that conversation happen at another time, later the same day, a few days later, because if you give yourself the real gift of being heard and you tell your partner how to succeed by asking that he just listens, and that's it. You get to have a wonderful, nourishing experience. You get to relax inside. He gets to feel that he's really helped you, even if it wasn't with problem solving. And the two of you have a whole fresh perspective when you go in to solve any problem that needs a solution. The thing that I want to emphasize very strongly is that the reverse happens as well. Certainly in a relationship where the woman is competent, is good at managing a household and a business and whatever her career is, where she's used to thinking quickly, where she's used to, in the context of business and parenting and whatever else she's putting her attention on in her life, she's used to listening and hearing how to be helpful, how to problem solve. And so even though Deborah Tannen in her research identified that the general tendency is for men to do report talking and for women to do rapport talking, and that those two clash when a man and woman are in conversation, my own experience working rather intimately with couples is that it also happens that men share and women go into problem solving. And in doing so, they are turning away from a really beautiful opportunity for emotional intimacy, for deeper connection. In fact, just this morning, I was coaching a magnificent couple. He is very successful. He thinks on his feet, and he is a smart man. She is very successful, thinks on her feet, and is a smart woman. They have different personalities, but they both have this in common. And what she wants is more emotional intimacy. She wants to feel cherished. She wants to feel that their hearts are open to one another. And when he shares something that is from his heart, that is vulnerable, he does not typically package it with vulnerability wrapping paper. This is a successful man who is used to speaking without his voice quavering, without getting breathy and having it feel like he's sharing feelings. But when he says, in what is a very straightforward manner, is that what you want? Or I'd like that. There's no angels singing to indicate that this is an emotional communication, but in fact, it is. He is sharing something that he wants, something about how he feels, something that is occurring in his inner life. He just hasn't put up flags to indicate that that's what he's doing. And therefore, she can very easily just go straight to addressing the content, straight to figuring out how to handle things, straight to some kind of concern or frustration she anticipates. And when she does that, she's essentially not receiving the gift he's giving of sharing something from his heart. So while coaching, I encouraged her to make it a practice when he's speaking about anything other than really clearly logistical matters, although this might even apply with logistical matters, to first respond to the emotional content, even if it's relatively camouflaged. If she has her attention on that, she's going to catch it more and more often. And after addressing the emotional content, she can then address the objective content and whatever intellectual response arises in her. How do I know about this? Well, I know about it because I see it happen in couples over and over and over again, but I also know about it from my own marriage. One of the most recurring communication styles my husband and I have had, this was really one of the last to evolve and transform, is that he would share something, not even something emotionally complicated necessarily. It might be that he would share something that was arising for him at work, or he would share something about a conversation he had with one of our children, or he might share something about a book that he read. And he might tell me 3 to 6 different things. I would hear that, and my response would focus on the 3% of what he said that I thought was confusing, wrong, inadequate, still needed attention. Because I have a well-trained mind and I pick up, it's like I'm looking for Waldo. I look for what isn't right, what isn't in alignment. And yes, I perceive the whole spectrum of what is in alignment, but I also pick up on the very subtly nuanced, typically otherwise camouflaged things that are exactly what needs attention. It is why I can serve couples in such a profound way. I perceive the blind spots. And when I'm speaking with my husband or he's speaking with me, I perceive the blind spots as well. And so, because I love him and because that is a way for me to be useful and make a contribution, that is what I have focused on in my responses. And so it used to be confusing why, when I would give such valuable feedback on the things that still needed adjusting, he would internally pull away. And then I would feel rejected. And you can imagine the disconnection and resentment on both sides that would follow. So as I perceived this pattern, I would listen to what he shared and then say, "Oh, I have an idea. Would you like to hear it?" And he used to always say yes, because I think he didn't really believe that no was an option, and it probably wasn't. But I grew and expanded and was more trusting and confident in myself. And so he found the courage and the wherewithal to say, "Actually, not right now." But over the years, what I came to understand is that when I would listen and be a big yes to 80, 90, 96% of what he said, and then focus on the other 4%, his experience was that he wasn't heard, that I didn't get it, that I wasn't actually paying attention to him. And so I've learned when he speaks with me to first acknowledge all of the things which are so obvious that for me, it doesn't even feel like I need to acknowledge them. But he's not a mind reader. He's pretty good, honestly, but I'm not counting on that. It's my responsibility to actually reflect some of what he's heard, what he said, acknowledge it, let him actually feel that I'm aligned with him, that I get it, that what he has shared with me has been received. And what I've discovered is that when I put attention and pour my energy into acknowledging the 80% that is just a very clear yes, the communication often feels complete. And if it doesn't, I'll say, but there's one little thing that I did want to mention. Are you interested? And I would say, if I have acknowledged everything that he shared, which I have taken in and really received and agree with, pretty much 100% of the time he says, oh yeah, what else? Because he can trust it. And he knows that it's built on a shared foundation because I've received what he said to me. So this is a topic which is fairly subtle and I think extremely relevant. And I'm going to summarize it in a much more concise way. When someone you care about shares something, whether it's very obviously an emotional communication because the voice is quivering, the tears are coming, there's a lot of jubilation, like any of the obvious signs of emotional communications, whether those are there or they're not, and it looks like a very straightforward, neutral communication, either way, when it is your beloved who is speaking, first, respond to the feeling. Respond to the emotional connection that's being offered. And then afterwards, respond to the content or give your good ideas and focus on the intellectual engagement that is also part of the communication. And if you're interested in understanding this more deeply, in embodying it, and learning so much more about how to be fully expressed with your intellect and your heart and your body, and how to receive your partner similarly, and how to speak with coworkers and bosses and really everyone in your life and feel like you're saying the full truth. You're not holding back. You're not unduly dominating. Well, by all means, click on the link in the show notes and join us at Communication Mastery in August in beautiful Northern California. And if you have any questions about anything I've said in this episode, both about the retreat and about communication, please reach out. When I'm talking about communication, I want it to feel like a dialogue. I'm speaking with you, and I would love to hear your response. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Marriage Podcast. Please rate and review the show on iTunes. It really makes a difference. And if you have a question or a comment, reach out to me via my website at alexandrastockwell.com.